Hi, this is Les Posen, FlightWise Fear of Flying clinical psychologist. Welcome to April 2020. Passover has gone, Easter has gone last weekend, Australia has gone back to normal time, United Kingdom or America has gone on to daylight savings. And yes, here we are, still locked down in Victoria where I am with coronavirus. We haven't gone further in our lockdown, but things like golf and fishing and a variety of things are not allowed. Horse racing is, however, which is kind of unusual, but there are different forces at work here. In the United States, for instance, certain sports have concluded, and yet professional wrestling in Florida is allowed to continue. Interesting questions will be asked one of these days as to how does all this work. In any case, I am reminded to ask you how you're doing. Please use the comments below and share with me how you're doing. This time does remind me, now that we're several weeks into our lockdown, that most airlines, most owners of airlines and shareholders are wondering whether their airline will ever get going again. Certain airlines have declared bankruptcy. More and more famous and old airlines are about to declare bankruptcy. Here in Australia, one of our major competitors, Virgin Australia, is contemplating going out of business and firing all of its staff, seeking a bailout, as is happening in the United States. So it's interesting times. I'm not happy that we're in this situation. Some of you might be thinking, well, I don't have to worry about my fear of flying any longer because I don't have to fly. And I want to say a couple of things to you. I am reminded of what happened after 9/11 almost 20 years ago in 2001. Just a few days before 9/11, I'd come back from the United States and I flew back from the US on United Airlines into Sydney, as I did at the time. We didn't fly directly into Melbourne at the time. And then I caught a flight by another airline called Ansett Australia, whom I used to consult with and work with. And 2 days later, that airline went out of business. It went bankrupt. Not because of 9/11, but just business. And we were left with a non-competitor. This allowed that airline that I just spoke before, Virgin, to make its way in as a budget airline. So Ansett didn't get bailed out. And the world, of course, changed. In the year or so after 9/11, the number of deaths on American roads, beyond that which would have been expected by those who monitor such things, went up by about 3,000 people unexpectedly, because corporate America said to its employees, unless the distance between you and the person you're going to consult with is more than 500 miles, you're not flying. This is when the airlines came back on stream. You're not flying, you are going to drive. And many people thought that flying was now too dangerous, and so we're going to drive. And the number of fatalities on the road went up beyond what the trends would have suggested by about 3,000 people. The situation here is a little different. But one thing is in common is that people in my business, fear of flying, have seen their businesses go through the floor. I'm okay now. It's not going to bother me. I'm still seeing people for other things, totally online, by the way. I'm not seeing anyone face to face. I probably won't be for the next 4 months. That's because I'm in a risk category that, in terms of age and conditions and all sorts of things, that precludes me from seeing people face to face. But I am doing my video conferencing work. I am seeing people online. I've been doing that for like 10 years, way before most of my colleagues thought it was even possible to do, using things like Skype, and then when FaceTime came in, and a variety of other things. But after 9/11, and I discussed this with colleagues, most of us found that our work went through the floor. And that's because it was no longer thought unusual or something that required the services of a psychologist to go and find out how come I've got this fear of flying. I know the statistics. Well, of course, people didn't use that kind of thinking anymore. It was perfectly reasonable and rational to not fly and have a fear of flying. So why would I go and consult a psychologist? Well, the same thing is happening now, in that I don't need to fly because, well, we're not allowed to. And moreover, I can't fly even if I wanted to practice my skills of flying, because no one's flying. I mean, here in Australia, there's in Melbourne, there's probably, I don't know, a dozen movements a day, and that's about it. And I think half of them are probably freight coming in from Auckland or Singapore or Hong Kong. It's really hard to get a flight. And in fact, if I was to fly my usual route into Tasmania, the southern island of Australia, I'd be locked down for 14 days with my patient rather than coming back the same day. So to that extent, one questions whether, you know, a fear of flying practice is going to be viable in the next couple of months. And certainly my work in using virtual reality with fear of flying, well, that's come to a halt as well, because you need to have someone here with it unless people start to buy the expensive equipment. So we'll put that on hold for a while. But I want to say to you this, that you shouldn't put your thinking about flying and your work on your anxiety on hold. You do have an opportunity to work through some ideas and to challenge yourself. I have had some phone calls from patients, by the way, who I've seen face to face, who are now saying to me that a lot of the things that we did in our fear of flying work, they're now able to apply in their day-to-day life in terms of managing their sort of general anxiety or general health concerns, which is what I would have expected. And I probably said to most people, and they would have gone, oh yeah, that's interesting, but can we work on our fear of flying? Not realizing that a lot of the ideas and tactics and skills that we were building can be applied to a variety of other presentations for anxiety. So with that said, the next week or so, I'm going to produce a couple of videos for you about general management of anxiety. They will be useful for flying, but they'll be useful in general for managing anxiety, some skills and some tactics. Look, I won't be including things like mindfulness and positive thinking and positive psychology, because in my world, in the way I work, they have some place, but minimal. But they're easy to talk about, and there's lots of apps out there and whatever else, and go and enjoy using them, but it's not the way I work. So come back to me a bit later. You'll see the videos published. Do subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be producing some new videos very soon, coming the week of starting the 22nd or so, and we'll be putting up some new videos for you to learn more about how to manage anxiety, not fear of flying. But let me just point out a couple of things. There are some parallels between what we're experiencing now and flying. Let me explain what they are before I bring this little conversation to a conclusion. One, for those of you who are suffering turbulence, and that's been your issue, we are currently in a very turbulent period. We are suffering lots of perturbations. Things aren't going smoothly. There are new challenges all the time. And if you think about being on board a plane, always the question is, when's the next bout of turbulence? Can I now relax? Hold on, what was that noise? And so each time, you know, a prime minister or a president comes onto television, like, what's the news of the day? What's the next scary thing I'm going to hear? So there are some parallels with managing turbulence. Okay? The second one to manage is confinement. A lot of people who come to see me are worried about confinement, being in a plane for 18 hours. Well, now we're locked down, can't go off and do the things we want to do for months on end. And so the management strategies are going to be kind of similar, and I'll talk about it in future YouTube videos I'm going to upload. And I guess the final one is something like health anxiety, where I treat a number of people who suffer with health concerns, where they may have to get out of the seat at any time. They have to keep an eye on whether the restrooms are full or empty, have to time their entry on board the plane so that they're not caught out having to rush to the restroom at a time which is inconvenient for them, or for where they're not permitted to by the plane. So there are lots of parallels here. So that's why I'm saying that the skills that you can use in fear of flying will transfer to the virus management of yourself in the virus situation, and vice versa. So there are some parallels. So we'll explore that in the next couple of videos that I'm going to make. Anyway, I want to keep it short and sweet. Stay well, stay healthy. If you can, get a little bit of fresh air, pet your dog and take her for a walk as I am with Scout back there. You can't really see him, but he's there. And I'll be back soon with more videos. Take care. Speak soon.